NBA on TNT era officially over. So what's the plan for Inside the NBA over at ESPN? Plus how Paul George is responsible for both OKC and Indiana making it to the finals. Hi everyone, welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekday as we're chatting the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. We've got a big show ahead, including flag football talk with NFL Global Ambassador Diana Flores. But first, let's dive into the shoot-around.
Yeah, and let's start with soccer as Paris Saint-Germain, the champions of Europe, after thumping Inter Milan 5-0 in the Champions League final over the weekend. PSG becomes the first French club to win the trophy since 1993. Now, after being purchased by Qatar Sports back in 2011 and cycling through stars like Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe over the years, PSG, Renee, spent over $400 million to construct their current roster compared to just $130 million for Inter Milan.
This is insane for a number of reasons, including that historic 5-0 victory, which was the largest at the time until the very next day when Cruz will beat that record. But it is remarkable when you look at how the team got here. I mean, head coach Luis Enriquez had personal tragedy in losing his daughter back in 2019 to bone cancer. So it meant a lot to him personally, but that's also the 7th title he's brought in his 2 seasons since becoming head coach. And he said when he joined the Red and Blues, he did not want to be on part of a team that was run by stars. That's what PSG's been known for. Even back with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, he didn't want to have a Messi, Neymar, Mbappe front three. And wanted to build, and with guys like Ousmane, Dembele, and others, they've been able to cut their payroll 51%, and they're
crazy.
now 6th highest in Europe and cross for salary wages. And it's a team that was the best they've seen in a number of years for PSG.
Yeah, by the way, Fanatics also saying the amount of merchandise sold for PSG, the most amount for a non-U.S. team they've seen in years. Elsewhere, the world's #1 golfer, Scottie Scheffler, cruised to victory over the weekend at the Memorial Tournament. He won the $4 million purse and also joined Tiger Woods as the only repeat winners of the tournament. But even more impressive, Renee, is that Scheffler is now just $10 million away from passing Phil Mickelson for 3rd all-time in PGA Tour winnings at about $96 million. With how hot he's been, he might actually pass or even catch Mickelson before the end of the year.
It is remarkable when you look at where the 28-year-old stands in that list of all-time with Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, and Phil Mickelson. And nothing could spoil the day, even including his 1-year-old son Bennett's poopy diaper that he had to blow. He was as he was and I love that moment. I love the fact his caddy Ted Scott was dancing in the locker room. This is a fun group around Scottie Scheffler, and honestly, he's bringing, as you mentioned, history, but he's just cruising right now. I mean, that 2 under 70 in the final round, even the fact that he's now won 3 times his last 4 starts. Scottie Scheffler he's torching hot right now and scorching towards a big direction. You could say Scottie Scheffler's big business.
Oh, Scottie Scheffler is big business. By the way, Tiger Woods still leads the pack in PGA Tour winnings, over $120 million. All right, we have a new Madden cover, everyone. Hello, Saquon Barkley, as his hurdle, maybe AI generated, graces the front cover of Madden 26. Renee, any worries about a Madden curse as Christian McCaffrey was the cover last year?
Give me some salt to throw over my shoulder. We don't say those words. I mean, 2K say a cheat code when you look at that hurdle, historic moment. And so it deserves to be on the front cover of Madden. And you look at the fact that he almost broke the regular season rushing yards, fell short of that, but did still set a overall season rushing yards record. Offensive player of the year. He's broken a lot of records and he's going to break the Madden curse record too. It does make me a little nervous, but I do have a feeling that Saquon Barkley, as he joins Donovan McNabb as the only player that's ever graced the cover of Madden, and also is the first Eagle to ever be in the Madden 99 club. So some more history that he's making with the 2025 Madden. And I'm super excited about what Saquon Barkley is going to bring. And I think that the Madden curse, this is the year it gets broken.
I mean, it might, because look, McCaffrey's injury obviously was an anomaly for the last couple of years because you had Mahomes and Tom Brady and a bunch of other guys on the cover. So I don't think it's as big of a deal as it used to be, but
the Madden curse, I always believe it's real though. But now this is the year it's no longer real. Every year I said it's real, but not this year.
We'll find out later this year when the Eagles kick off the season. Well, the Indiana Pacers are headed to their first NBA Finals in 25 years and didn't just end the season for the Knicks. They also ended TNT's 35-year coverage of the NBA as that network aired its final NBA telecast, as the league now is going to have their coverage go to NBC and Amazon. So for more, let's bring in our Mike McCarthy in today's big main event. And let's bring in our Mike McCarthy, the writer of the Tuned In newsletter. Of course, you can subscribe to that on frontofficesports.com. Mike, let's talk about this. A 35-year end for TNT and their NBA coverage. Really sort of sad that it's all over now.
What a swan song, huh? I mean, 35 years on the air. Acclaimed really as the best studio show in sports of all time, led by Charles Barkley, an incredible cast. And, they went out their way. They did it with fun. They did it with bombast. They did it with opinion. It was great. But here is the best news for sports media viewers. The show will be back. Inside the NBA lives like a zombie returning, except next year it's going to be on ESPN instead of TNT.
And Mike, I'm curious because this was one of the biggest free agents in sports, you could say. It was just how popular the show has been. And Ernie had that great sentimental moment, as Ernie Johnson was saying, if he could write the script, this would be a long-standing relationship with TNT and Inside the NBA forever. As they now shift to ESPN, was this more of ESPN's way to make sure with this new NBA media deals to make sure that NBC doesn't pick up Inside the NBA? Or do you think this was something that was kind of always in the back of their minds?
I think it was always in the back of their mind. I mean, let's face it, ESPN has been lusting after Charles Barkley and Inside the NBA for 20 years. That's why they kept changing the cast of NBA Countdown every year. Bill Simmons and Wilbon and this guy and that guy. They can never compete with Inside the NBA. And Jimmy Pitaro, I think, is a very bottom line oriented CEO. And his idea is, look, if I can't beat him, join him, right? He couldn't beat the Fox team, so he basically hired Joe Buck and Troy Aikman to come over and do Monday Night Football, and he couldn't beat Charles Barkley and Inside the NBA, so he's bringing them over to ESPN, and to me, one of the most brilliant deals a CEO has ever made. He basically went to TNT and said, look, this show is going to go off the air. I can save it, and in return, we'll give you a package of Big 12 college football games. And they worked it out. Presto, the show was saved.
Yeah, and TNT's still going to produce Inside the NBA, albeit it's going to be just licensed and aired on ESPN. But Mike, I guess a lot of us are intrigued at what is this going to look like on ESPN? We know Scott Van Pelt does most of the post-game shows for SportsCenter on ESPN. So where is this going to work in the ESPN schedule? Will there be an Inside the NBA post-game show?
Yeah, I think the way it's going to work is this. First of all, Baker, as you said, it's a very good point. The show will continue to be produced by TNT. The cast will continue to be TNT employees. They will have full editorial control. So what you're going to see is exactly the same as what you're seeing now. It's just on a different channel. But here, the devil's in the details, right? Will there be a post-game show as there is now? I'm hearing yes. Now, that might involve having to move some stuff around. Maybe, if you're on ABC watching the finals, you'll have to go to ESPN to watch ESPN Inside the NBA. Maybe if Scott Van Pelt comes on at midnight, then the show shifts to ESPN too. It's kind of having champagne problems if you're ESPN because they've got so many platforms they can make the move. But the idea of just, one linear network having the whole thing, before, during, and after the game, that is going to change.
We've seen so many changes from ESPN, including their programming, their LA location. We just talked about Around the Horn here on the show with Tony Reale. Do you feel like this is also maybe, and anticipate this is maybe a change for the industry, that we're going to see more crossover? This is it's like the Avengers kind of. You've got them still producing in Atlanta, yet they're going to be shown on ESPN. It's like an ultimate crossover of networks. Do you see this happening?
I definitely see that. It's a great point. I mean, I think what you're seeing is the growing power of personalities, right? You know what I mean? You have the Pat McAfee show, very similar to Inside the NBA, right? He owns the show, and he has full editorial control. He just licenses it to ESPN. And that's exactly what TNT is doing. They own the show. They employ the cast. They're just licensing it. So what you're seeing here is really, not so much competition going away, but people just willing to think outside the box. That whole pride thing, well, it's not our show and we didn't develop it. That's right out the window. If you got a chance to get Inside the NBA and you're Jimmy Pitaro, Burke Magnus, you go for it. And they pulled it off.
Amen. Mike McCarthy, always good insight. Our writer of Tuned In. Of course, you can get that newsletter on frontofficesports.com. Mike, thank you so much. And don't go anywhere, guys. We're talking flag football with NFL Global Ambassador Diana Flores. Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. Now, NFL owners just a few weeks ago allowed NFL players to be able to compete in the upcoming summer games in Los Angeles for flag football. And somebody who knows a lot about that is Diana Flores, the quarterback for the Mexican national team. She joined Renee and I earlier to talk about what that could mean for the players. Take a look. And joining us now is the NFL Flag Football Global Ambassador and, of course, quarterback for the Mexican national team, Diana Flores. Diana, thank you so very much for joining us. We got to start with the big news. The NFL finally announcing that players in the NFL can partake in flag football for the upcoming Olympics. I guess, what's your thought on that and just the continued growth that we're seeing in the evolution of flag football here?
Yes, we are living very exciting moments for flag football worldwide, not only with the growth of the game around the world. We are more than 20 million players, more than 100 countries, now an Olympic sport, and this is just opening many, many doors for men and women. And now knowing that the sport is opening the doors for many more athletes to also have the opportunity to represent their countries through flag football at the Olympic Games, I think it's just amazing. We have this door open for more talent to come, to bring more awareness for the game, to bring more exposure to the game. I think that will just benefit not only the sport of flag football worldwide, but also the growth of the game, the athletes. This will just create more pathways for young girls and boys to dream bigger than ever. So I'm just excited for this big news and for what's yet to come.
And I like the fact that you're at the forefront and involved in these conversations because you yourself, Diana, with your impressive resume, have been a pioneer in so many ways. You've been on teams where you're the only Latino. You've been the youngest on your Mexican national team when you joined back at 16. And even just being the first female to have artifacts in the Pro Hall of Fame for football. What is the significance and importance of now this opportunity to compete in the Olympics aligned with how the league has been working so hard to expand to have a global presence?
Yes, I think, I've been super blessed to be able to give back to the sport that has given me a lot, not only as a player on the field representing my country at the biggest stages, but also off the field, working alongside the NFL and IFAF as an ambassador for the sport is amazing because at the end of the day, I think sports is just a tool. It's just like a platform to change lives. It's a platform to give boys and girls not only the knowledge but also the opportunities to pursue their dreams. They doesn't have to be in sports, but it's just like a way. And flag football has been doing that as it is such an inclusive sport. It is for boys, for girls, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, you will find your place on the field. You don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need a lot of investment to start a flag football team.
Well, even on top of that, you would have to think from the NFL side, Diana, in terms of international expansion, you're joining us from Mexico City. There's multiple games now we have in Brazil and in other parts of Europe. Do you think doing flag football is only going to increase international exposure and awareness that more people are not just aware of flag football, but of the NFL?
For sure. I think this helps everybody. Like the NFL have done amazing efforts, not only to grow the game globally, but to, as I said, to bring more opportunities to the young generations. I think this will just open the doors for many. It doesn't matter if they are already fans of football, fans of flag football, or boys and girls who are getting to know the game for first time ever. This will open them these doors to try something new, something that can change their lives in the future. So I think this is a global movement for sure. This is a sport of the new generations. It is fast, it is creative, it is appealing. And I feel that through that, giving the young generations a platform for international athletes, men, women, to just come together, followed by the same passion, by the same love for the game. And that's life-changing. As I said, it's very powerful.
Well, we talk so much about all the efforts being done to grow the game of flag football, but also to grow the NFL internationally. And I'm curious, as a player yourself that has a unique perspective on the inside, what have you noticed has been some of those massive changes in just the opportunities and resources for players like yourself and your teammates and others?
Well, I'm going to start by the amazing increase of players around the globe. I remember back then when I started playing, nobody knew what a flag football was. I remember you had to give this long explanation of it's like football but without contact and all of that. And we wear like flats on our hips, blah, blah, blah. And now you say flag football and everybody knows what you're talking about. Last World Cup in Finland, just to see other countries as Japan, Spain, Great Britain, Canada, of course the US, all the fierce competition and the passion and the skills and the preparation and all of that is mind-blowing. So that's exciting to see and experience as an athlete for sure.
Yeah, another thing that's really amazing, I mean, you have artifacts in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You were the first female to ever have that happen. Tell us a little bit about what that moment meant to you.
That was a big milestone for sure. Not only for our sport to be recognized and have a place there where the best players in football are recognized, where history is being shown, but especially for women. I think in a place where it traditionally was male dominated, now to recognize the voice and the impact that women has in football and flag football, I think is amazing, because our perspective, our achievements are not only needed, but are like impactful. And I think that was a proof of it. I feel super proud and honored, but I also feel excited because I know I'm not gonna be the only one that opened the door for many women to come and just bring their legacy there for other men in flag football too, and just to keep opening those doors and paths for the next generations, knowing that they can dream big, that they can achieve, that we belong, that we deserve, that we have the voice, and that we deserve to have that spotlight, to have that voice, to have the resources, to have the support and the opportunities.
Period. As a gold medalist in 2022, you're not only changing the game on the field, but off the field as well. So, Diana, it's so great to see how you're building this legacy. Thank you so much for taking time to join us here on Front Office Sports today.
Thank you.
And our thanks to Diana Flores. And coming up next on Front Office Sports today, the NBA and NHL finals are set. So why do two teams have Paul George to thank for it? That's ahead. And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee. I'm Baker, and the finals are set for the NHL and NBA. We have a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup as both Edmonton and Florida return. And in the NBA, two similar teams from smaller markets with frugal payrolls give us the first final since 2003 that neither team is in the luxury tax. So let's see how these teams got here, Renee, and let's start with the NHL. I mean, just look over the course of the last 6 years. Florida, Tampa, and the teams they're playing. Edmonton, Vegas. Vegas was number one in the conference this last year. You also have Dallas, who was really incredibly good. Colorado was one of the top teams as well. There's a lot of consistency always with a lot of these teams that are making the finals.
Honestly, a difference between the NHL from other leagues, such as maybe the NBA, is they're not building super teams. They're not just drafting, already established all-stars and then hoping for a championship. You look at Edmonton and Florida, and even Tampa Bay, as you mentioned, and some others, it's through the draft they've been building these teams. I mean, the best players across both these teams, whether it's three-time MVP, 2024 Finals MVP Connor McDavid or Alexander Barkov or others like Evan Bouchard or whoever else you want to look at, their best players came through the draft 7 to 10 to 11 to 12 years ago. So it's not even like these are recent draft picks that just happen to separate into the league and come into fruition as being the top players. So now you have Edmonton, who, for example, is 12th in the NHL in payroll with that $76 million price point. You've got the Panthers, who are 6th in the league. Yes, they're high payrolls, but they're paying and investing in those players that they drafted that have proven they're deserving of those higher salaries. So I think it's unique in that the NHL is not dealing with a salary cap issue. It is more of a tax rate issue that's causing a discrepancy. But the bottom teams can't keep up because they're like 5, 6, 7 years behind in developing their rosters to be at the level that the Oilers and Panthers are.
Well, plus the salary cap is going up this next year for the NHL, allowing teams like Florida to to continue to keep their players, where we don't see that as often in the NBA because of the luxury tax and the aprons that then disincentivize teams from becoming super teams.
And a lot of those same players on their roster last year, like 14 guys, for example, for the Oilers, are back this year. So it's not a quick change in carousel of rosters. It's the same players, experience, veterans, consistency year after year.
Well, and let's move to the NBA because you have the Pacers 16th in payroll, Oklahoma City 20. I have them at 25th in payroll. The Pacers payroll basically is $169 million. They're below the tax threshold. By the way, the last time the Pacers ever were in the luxury tax was in 2005 when Ron Artest and Steven Jackson were on that roster. Yeah, exactly. A long, long, long time ago. And then you have Oklahoma City, which basically has so many guys still on rookie contracts because you've accumulated, Sam Presti has their general manager, so many draft rights to Chet Holmgren, to so many other guys that are still on young deals. But Oklahoma City then trades a lot of these guys once they become too expensive for them.
Well, much like the Oilers and the Panthers, OKC and Indiana are just kind of behind. They're doing the same thing. They're actually found the same footprint, and it's remarkable. They've built through the draft and young players. Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams drafted. SGA acquired through a trade at a young, before he was MVP SGA. Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers, same thing. So they have really been able to build their rosters, their depth as well, versus having 2 or 3 guys that are, absorbing all the salary. They're spreading the money throughout, building depth, building pieces around their top players that they've developed. So very unique and similar when you look at the NHL and the NBA.
And let's keep talking about roster construction in the NBA and see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. All right, so this water cooler is sponsored today by Paul George. And the reason for all of this, by the way, not in the NBA Finals at all. I think he's doing his podcast at home somewhere, collecting all of his money from Philadelphia, is really the reason both of these teams are in the NBA Finals. If you go all the way back to when Paul George was with the Indiana Pacers, he got drafted by them in the 2010 draft, number 10, and then just a few years later was sent to the Thunder for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. And then just 5 years later, Sabonis is then traded to the Kings for Tyrese Halliburton. We should also note Andrew Nebhard, who has been one of the biggest players, the second best player for the Pacers, also has a connection to Paul George because he was traded from the Cavaliers when the Cavaliers had sent out a bunch of picks to the Cavs. So this is just crazy how this is all connected.
I know. This is giving all new meaning to Playoff P. Paul George is someone that has been actively involved. We talk so much about Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and that OKC era. We leave out the fact that Paul George has direct connections to the biggest names for both teams.
Yeah,
so when you look at SGA, for example, who was the direct player involved in that massive trade with the Clippers, it was 5 first-round picks that they were able to get through that draft, 2 first-round picks for Paul George, Danilo Gallinari, a lot that came through that trade, including MVP SGA, who at the time was not a great player in the NBA. He was still so young. So I think Paul George is showing us that sometimes it's okay to move on from the veteran and be able to invest in the younger guys, and it's paid off for both
One of those
teams.
first-round picks,
but trading.
One of those first-round picks, by the way, was used on Jalen Williams, clearly the second-best player on the Thunder, so it worked out well for them. All right, that's it for this edition of Front Office Sports Today. We'll see you back here tomorrow for more fun. Bye, friends.